started at the beginning of the semester. It was mostly just a concept, and I finally crystallized the whole thing. So, y'all get the finished product.
Woo!
Lucky
Yeah! Go Nugget!
you. You're the best friend, right? I love you. Okay. It's called Porcelain Face. Once, not long ago, the god of Adris created a girl with a beautiful porcelain face. She trusted him and never turned her flawless gaze from her creator. He fed her with scripture, strengthened her with his unwavering love. And as she began to learn to walk, the Lord took tiny steps away from her, and she matched his steps, following him devotedly. Her steps were shaky, but each one made her stronger as she chased her God. One day, as she lifted her foot to follow in her creator's footsteps, the accuser slithered under her, and when she set her foot down, he snatched her ankle and dragged her from her feet, his searing grip staining her perfect skin with ugly, painful burns. As she fell, she cried out for her Lord to save her, but he simply watched her precious face as it struck concrete and was dragged away. "Let me go," she pleaded, realizing with horror that the impact of her fall had weakened the porcelain of which she was made, and along her jawline had slid a long, hairline fracture. The accuser laughed at her. "Do you really wish for me to release you? You have been flawed. You've ruined your perfect face. Your God will not want you now." She gritted her teeth against the pain of his hand on her skin. "Let me go," she repeated, squirming in his grasp. "Very well." And he dropped her, vanishing as quickly as he had appeared, leaving her alone, crumpled on the dirty pavement. As she pulled herself up, her finger traced the fracture on her jaw. "I am broken," she whispered. "That creature is right. My God will never accept me in this state. I must find someone who can make me whole again, so that I may appear before my Creator." So with shaking steps, the girl set off down the dull sidewalk in search of someone who could fix her. The first person she encountered was a kindly old woman, leaning heavily on an old knotted cane. "Where are you going, child?" she asked gently, looking up at the lovely porcelain face. "I'm looking for someone who may repair this crack in me," the girl replied innocently, lifting her chin to show the woman her fractured jaw. To her surprise, the woman recoiled in horror. "How dare you show your flaws to me, you wretched thing! And your ankle! You have been touched by the evil one! You are spoiled, dirty! Away, away with you! Do not touch me!" The woman hurried past her, viciously rapping at the girl's knees with her cane. She toppled in pain, red circles growing on her complaining knees, and a crack appeared on her forehead as her face once again came in contact with the pavement. "Oh, poor thing," a sweet voice cooed from above her, and the girl looked up to encounter an elegantly dressed woman with a beautiful face. The woman offered a hand to help her up. "Come now, no use sitting on the curb. Come with me and we'll get you some new clothes. Yours are terribly dirty." The girl blinked, looking down at herself. "But my father gave me these clothes," she protested quietly, wondering what was wrong with her outfit. "Oh, tut, dear, everyone changes clothes. Come on now." And the beautiful woman led the girl through a door into a large, stately apartment and gave her a dress made of silk and a pair of shoes that hinged her toes. She wiggled uncomfortably in her new outfit, but said nothing, for the woman moved with confidence as if she must know better. And besides, this woman had no cracks on her face. "Now then, dear, about your face," the woman began, and the girl instantly snapped to attention, forgetting her discomfort in her eagerness to have her flaws repaired. "We'll have to cover up those cracks." "Cover up?" the girl repeated in surprise. "Well, of course." The woman laughed as though her new charge knew nothing at all, and approached her with a makeup brush. But as she leaned in closer, the girl could see that the woman's face was not flawless after all, but covered with a thick coat of paint. In a rush of panic, the girl threw her hands in front of her face, knocking the makeup brush out of the woman's hand and leaving a streak of paint across her palm. "Ungrateful child!" the woman cried in dismay, turning to pick up her brush. The girl, still terrified, picked up her own clothes and ran, dashing out of the woman's apartment and back onto the street, the force of her steps causing the cracks in her jaw and forehead to branch and grow, one crawling up her cheek while the other reached for her brows. She intended to put her own clothes back on, but she remembered in shame that the woman had called them dirty, so instead she gently hid them in a nearby trash can and limped on in the ill-fitting shoes and silk dress the woman had given her, trying to avoid her reflection in shop windows and puddles, for she could feel how far the cracks had spread and did not wish to see her ugliness in the glass. It was to her great surprise then that the next voice that addressed her drawled, "Hello, beautiful." She looked around in confusion, as if unsure that the voice was even speaking to her, and looked straight up into the blue eyes of a smiling young man. She stared in disbelief. He smiled warmly down at her. "Me?" she whispered, still gasped. He chuckled. "Indeed, you're quite a lovely young lady." The girl finally managed to close her mouth and swallowed nervously. She remembered the red bruises on her knees and the streak of paint on her hands, but she asked anyway. "Do you think you could fix me?" she mumbled timidly, pointing to the multiple fractures on her face. The man shook his head. "You don't need to be fixed. Your scars make you beautiful." The girl frowned. No, scars are not beautiful, and I don't want any more. Don't be stupid, he said sharply, his smile vanishing. I'm the best thing that could happen to you for a long time. She frowned at him suspiciously, but he gave her no more time to retort before he continued. I mean, just look at you. You think anyone else will want you? You should be grateful I'm a good person who want to take care of you. I don't need you, she began, but he silenced her by sending one hand singing across her face. Her entire right cheek shattered, the tiny bits of porcelain barely staying together to keep her splintered face intact. She ran out onto a street that was bustling with people and tried to wiggle through them, but struggled to keep her feet, tossed and jostled by the crowds of people rushing to get to their homes. Finally, she ducked inside an open door and found herself sitting in a dark room full of tables and a row of stools near a counter on one wall. A man was sitting on one of the stools leaning on the counter. Welcome, little lady, he said cheerfully, and the girl wondered why he didn't seem to open his mouth enough when he spoke. Won't you come sit by me? He asked, but she noticed his eyes lingering on the dark bruises on her knees. Come on, I won't bite you. Have a drink, the man offered, sliding her a glass. The girl smiled at the gesture. She hadn't noticed how dry her throat had gotten from running all over the city. Thank you, she chirped, and pulled the glass toward her and taking a large gulp. Immediately she spat it out, coughing. The liquid burned her throat and her stomach, and it tasted horrible. The man on the stool laughed gently. You have to drink it slowly. She looked at him dubiously, but tried again, with just a little sip. It still burned, but she was able to swallow it. There you go, the man slurred, sipping his own glass. She sat at the bar till she finished her glass, and then she thanked the gentleman and tried to get up. When she took a step, however, the world slid out from underneath her and her face hit the ground hard, shattering the entirety of the porcelain into tiny fragments clinging to her face. As she dragged herself to her knees, the girl slowly became aware of the riotous laughter coming from the bar and the tables in the room. Her stomach burned and her ear. She felt her ears darken with shameful crimson as she looked around at the jeering faces. She wanted to run again, but when she tried to stand, the floor once again bucked and heaved and the walls spun, and she could rise no further than her hands and knees, much to the amusement of the surrounding voices, whose laughter continued to burn in her ears. Once on her hands and knees, she dragged herself outside. By now it was dark and the streets were clear, and she felt her way along the rough brick walls, slowly regaining her faculties, until suddenly her stomach rocked and bent, and she poured from her mouth all the infernal liquid that had humiliated her. She scrambled away from the puddle it created on the sidewalk, managing to finally gain her feet and keep them. Hurrying away from the puddle in the dark, smoky room, the girl found herself for the first time wholly alone. Inexplicably, this frightened her most of all. She longed for her father and the strength of his loving guidance. She had almost resolved to return to him no matter what her condition when she suddenly turned a corner and was confronted with her reflection in a glass shop window. Her face was completely shattered. Her skin was covered in bruises and dirt. Her dress was stained with her own vomit and the filth of the dirty streets. She was hideous. She reeled in disgust, dashing away from the glasses as though she could escape her own brokenness. Finally, she collapsed in an alley and curled up against a wall, exhausted and miserable, bitter salt tears sliding through the cracks of her ruined face. She cried so hard she almost didn't hear a familiar voice when it murmured, "Hey." The girl froze, not daring to believe what she heard. "Get up." She finally raised her eyes and beheld her beloved father standing over her, holding out a hand to her. But the pain on her ankle and her knees and the tears on her face reminded her. "No," she said, "I'm broken. I'm not worthy of you." The God of ages smiled and shook his head and knelt down beside her. He lifted her face to him with one hand and gently kissed her forehead. As he did, every single fragment of porcelain that had made up her face fell away like so many ashes, revealing a face of flesh and bone. "See?" God asked her, taking her in his arms and carrying her home. "You've always been perfect."